You're listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs Podcast with your host, Maggie Mogan.
Hi, small business owners. Welcome to the Brilliant Breakthroughs Podcast, where we focus on creating brilliant breakthroughs for the small business owner. FYI, this is also the name of the #1 Amazon best-selling business book series for small business, and it's titled Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner, and the subtitle is Fresh Perspectives on Profitability, People, Productivity, and Finding Peace in Your Business. The good news is you can get this both in digital copy or paperback, depending upon what you prefer. And that would be on Amazon. We have it in other places as well, like Barnes & Noble. But when you're looking for the book, I want you to know that the book we're referencing today in the book series is Volume 2 with the emerald green cover. So today's conversation is with the #1 best-selling business author from the 2018 book, Susan White. And before we dive into all the goodness that Susan has prepared for us today, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. And I want to say, hello, rock stars of small business. I'm Maggie Mongan, the #1 best-selling business author and creator of this #1 best-selling series we're talking about. And my full-time gig is being a master business coach and trainer at Brilliant Breakthroughs, Inc., where we simply guide and simplify your business brilliance. That's the game I play. So now let's get back to why we're here today. And that's Susan. Susan White, welcome. You're a rock star in the business world, aren't you?
Thank you, Maggie. I think of myself as a rock star from time to time.
Well, you are. Not everybody can say that they've been a 2-time #1 best-selling business author. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been exciting.
All right. So everyone, in that emerald green book, Volume 2, we're speaking of, Susan wrote a chapter. It's the 8th chapter in the book, and it's titled, Are You Willing to Be Successful? And I love this chapter that Susan wrote because instead of focusing on the success part of that title, she focused on the willingness. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, and how it's our willingness supports us in succeeding. So Susan, I know you've prepared a few things for us to discuss. Where would you like for us to begin today?
Well, actually, Maggie, I thought we'd have a little fun today, and I looked up some quotes I Googled some quotes for us to talk about, and they have to do with willingness. So the first quote that I looked up was, "Be willing to be a beginner every single morning." That's by Meister Eckhart. And thought that was so intriguing. It speaks to the Buddhist concept of beginner's mind. Be willing to learn every day. Be willing to be teachable every day. Give yourself a fresh start every day. What do you think of that?
Well, I am a practitioner of that. So I think a lot of that. This is really cool. And I didn't know that that was his quote. Could you say it again?
Be willing to be a beginner every single morning.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Every single morning, be willing to be a winner. Yes, I'm in.
Love
How about
that
you?
one.
Pardon me?
Another one is, the ultimate test of man's conscience may be his willingness to sacrifice something today for future generations whose words of thanks will never be heard.
Ooh, okay. You want to repeat that one more time so we get it now that it's so deeply rooted in us?
The ultimate test of man's conscience may be his willingness to sacrifice something today for future generations whose words of thanks will never be heard. And that was written by Gaylord Nelson, who I'm not familiar with. I love the quote, though, because it has to do with our consciousness or a mindfulness of the future as well as the present, and how willing we are to do something today that we know is going to benefit people tomorrow, but we may never get a thanks or an acknowledgement for it at all.
Mm-hmm. Right, I'm with you on that. He's addressing the impact of a selfless act that can transcend time.
Yes. And think of all the people who have done that for us in terms of um, technology and in terms of innovations. Look at the Wright brothers. Look at Thomas Edison. Look at what we've done with electricity. Who
Pretty
thanks Thomas Edison?
right. Right. And even people who plant trees.
Oh my goodness, yes, that's a biggie. That's a biggie because trees take so long to mature and it's such a process for the tree. And who knows? Who
Like,
knows who did it?
right. My in-laws retired up north in a beautiful area on a lake, and about 15 years into their retirement, they decided to plant maple trees alongside each side of the driveway. And the shame of it is they'll never get to see how beautiful that really looks.
Mm,
But they hold the vision for that for whomever comes next, because
right.
it will just be beautiful, like you just sighed, and that's what it will do. So in one aspect, that is exactly the type of thing this quote references.
And correlating that to small business, when I had my vision for my business, I wanted to create a very cozy, homey environment. And some people comment on that environment, and some people don't say a word about it, but they do talk about being comfortable. So I don't always get a thank you for what I've created in terms of the environment here, but I do definitely get the benefit from it in terms of how comfortable people feel in my environment.
Oh, sure, everybody benefits.
Right, right.
What I like about that quote is how it transcends time or generations, most likely. So
Yes,
that's pretty neat.
yes,
Wow, you're nailing it. I bet you have another one ready for us, don't you?
I do. Um, listen with the will to learn.
Hmm.
And I can't even pronounce the name of the person who said this. I'll try. Unarine Ramaru. I'm going to read the quote again. Listen with the will to learn. This is so valuable to us when we encounter somebody who has a differing perspective from ours, because it's very easy for us to believe that what we think and what we've experienced is ultimate truth. And it's not always ultimate truth.
Hmm. Well, I agree with you. And in business, this comes across so many different ways of people sharing what needs to be done and it being done a different way because there was a misunderstanding or even customer service. Customer service, whole job is just what you said here, listen with the will to learn. Because if you
Correct.
don't know what it is that somebody's disappointed with, you can't help them resolve it.
That's correct. And I remember once where I was working for corporate America, and we used to hand out evaluations after each client was done with their purchase. And in one of my evaluations, in the write-in section, one of my clients had written, Susan was very proficient and willing to right a wrong that had been done. And I just thought to myself, if I had never listened to these people, I wouldn't have known exactly what was wrong, and I would have never been able to manage it and make them happy in the end.
Huh,
Yeah, I
that's
was very
powerful.
willing to walk them through and get them to that place where they were satisfied.
So this is fascinating because that's like after somebody becomes a customer that we're talking about, that aspect
Correct.
of customer service. But the same
Right.
is true to help them become a customer, because if we assume we know what a potential customer needs for a solution, we lose. But
Right.
if we're willing to listen and learn what it is that's most valuable to them, and it happens to be related to whatever it is we're offering, then chances are we will be able to serve them in the capacity that they think is most appropriate.
Right. There's that beginner's mind again.
Oh,
If we
yeah,
have a preconceived notion of what somebody expects and what will make them happy, as opposed to actually listening and going through the process with them, um, it's the difference between having somebody happy or not.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I didn't think of it that way as the beginner's mind, but thank you for mentioning that. And I just had somebody in the office earlier today for a VIP day, and she said to me, "Oh, well, I know what this course should be." She's developing a course. And I said,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, what do you think it should be?" And she started to tell me, and I said, "So is that according to you or according to your potential customers?" And she went,
Great
"Oh,
question.
oh, yeah, they want something different." And I'm like, "Well, then you have a disconnect."
Right. What a great question that was.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, so often experts forget that people need what they need and don't necessarily want to know everything that experts know.
Right. And the right questions can make a huge difference in terms of what the end result is.
Well, you know that very well, don't you?
Yes, since that's one of the things I strive to do is listen well and ask the right questions.
As a therapist, I would imagine that that's essential.
It is. It's crucial at times.
And and I know you're an expert at this because I've known you for many years. So because you're willing to listen to learn instead of listen to confirm what you think you know,
Hmm.
you have the ability to serve clients at a deeper level than what they may have not. I'm sorry, at a deeper level, getting to things that they may not have even been aware of before, don't you?
Well, I have the ability to help people learn, grow, and develop. I know that because it's happened over and over again. And what somebody comes in thinking they're coming here for is not always the end result of our first session, which is the foundation for future work that we're going to be doing.
Excellent. Very cool. How many more of these really cool quotes do you have? Oh my gosh.
Well, let's see. Here's one. Here's one. Oh, if I love this one. Um, if you are willing to be a self-learner, you will develop yourself.
Hmm.
If you are willing to be a self-learner, you will develop yourself. And that was written by Layla Gifty Akita, Pearls of Wisdom.
Well, that is a pearl of wisdom for sure.
Definitely. Has to do with education and being a lifelong learner and actually creating a destiny for yourself as you grow yourself.
So, through willing to learn, you develop a personal development program for yourself.
Right, because the more willing you are to learn and grow, the more willing you are to um, expand your horizon, the more you're going to evolve and develop, especially if you surround yourself with evolving and developing people.
Right. Right. Okay. Now that makes a lot of sense. Even if it's something like gardening or learning how to paint, it's using different parts of your brain that you don't normally use,
Hmm.
and through that you become a more well-rounded person. I love this.
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
Def-
I'm digging
um,
that one. You haven't had one that I'm going, what?
Here's one. The choice to lead is nurtured by the willingness to rise above challenges of life. The choice to lead is nurtured by the willingness to rise above challenges of life. Who, who doesn't have challenges? My goodness. We're faced with so many challenges each and every day.
Huh. Susan, whose quote was that?
Israel Moore,
I am
I
I'm
or A
familiar I'm familiar with uh his work.
really
Hmm.
Ivor, AYivor.
Yes, I would stumble on his name as you just did.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am familiar with some of his writings, and I've even blogged about him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I like this addresses leadership too, because the choice to lead is nurtured. Again, nurtured is a powerful word as well.
Hmm.
Willingness to rise above the challenges of life rather than having a challenge approach us and we look at it and we go, well, forget it, this idea won't work.
Right, and that runs so closely to the strategy or the concept of, is something managing you or are you managing it? So this addresses that choice to lead and to rise above whatever it is. This is really power packed.
Well, it also addresses limitations. How often have we faced challenges that are brand new to us and we're really clueless about how to address them? So, this has me thinking about one of my own personal values, and that is I surround myself with good people and let them do their jobs.
So that's addressing limitations in a way that most people don't think. Most people think of limitations as really buckling down and getting scrappy with it. In this case, you're saying, hey, no, just bring on people that have a better handle on the topic than you do.
Right. Like right now, we're in a position at our home where we need to have our chimney tuck pointed. What do I know about tuck pointing? I've don't even climb up on the roof because it scares me. So I'm faced with this challenge of finding tuck pointers to get quotes and to learn about what needs to be done. And so far, I've gotten about 3 quotes, and I've learned something different from each person that has come out to quote the job. So by the time I'm done, I'm going to be a lot more knowledgeable about tuck pointing and brickwork. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, you will. Huh. There's so many applications to this.
There definitely are.
I love it. Do you have another one for us to play with?
Well, here's another one. A grudging willingness to admit error does not suffice. You have to cultivate a taste for it.
uh, that's
I'm
good.
just giving us a second here to take that in. A grudging willingness to admit error does not suffice. You have to cultivate a taste for it. And what I hear that saying is we can't just admit when we're wrong. We need to actually embrace being wrong at times and be willing to be wrong in order to evolve and to learn and to grow.
Right, right. So there's an owning of the air, and I think that's the one thing I don't see a lot of people doing, much less businesses, is owning their error right up front. As soon as it's identified, just own it. Nobody's perfect.
Right.
Nothing's perfect. We're all still human, last I checked.
And I
And
find when I own my errors right up front, people are a lot more compassionate than I think they're ever going to be. They're far more compassionate with me than I sometimes am with myself in terms of making a mistake.
so this to me is a quite fascinating point, because we create this story that, oh, this is a big thing. And yet what you're sharing, your experiences and mine, when we drop the ball on something or we make an error, that the sooner we own it, the easier it is. People are very pardoning. And I'm wondering if it's because it's not common for people to admit that there is an error and own it.
Actually, that's another one of my thought processes is when I'm setting forth to do something that is unfamiliar to me, I'm willing to be wrong. I would much rather be willing to be wrong than to absolutely do nothing and sit helplessly like a victim and hope that somebody is going to come rescue me. I'm much more willing to take an action and do the best I can with what I have to work with than I am to do nothing.
Hmm. I I I think that's really powerful.
It is, and think how often we need to use that strategy in business.
Well, if we don't take a risk, and that means be willing to be wrong, we chances are we're not going to succeed as we anticipate. And that could be bigger, greater, more, whatever it is, if we're not willing to take enough risk.
Yeah, we have to take risk. You and I agree on that. Here's another one. In my experience, the content strategist is a rare breed who's often willing and able to embrace whatever role is necessary to deliver on the promise of useful, usable content. And this was written by Christina Halverson, Content Strategy for the Web. So
Cool.
again, the willingness piece, often willing and able to embrace whatever role is necessary. We can just isolate that part of this quote and apply that to any business, because
Yes.
the whole notion of my writing this chapter in the first place was, are you willing to be successful? Everybody wants success, but are you really willing to do what it takes to be successful? Are you willing to work 7 days a week? Are you willing to work long hours? Are you willing to be wrong at times? What are you willing to do to actually attain success?
And I think there's great value to this. A lot of people don't know that there's a product in a spray can, and it's called WD-40.
Hmm.
And I've had fun blogging about this over the years. WD-40 is, the WD stands for water displacement, and the 40 stands for they didn't get the formula right until the 40th experiment of the formula.
I love that, Maggie. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I love WD-40 too.
Yeah, I got a can in the office. We use it. So it shows the tenacity and the perseverance of being willing to show up and show up and show up until something is appropriate. And that's why I love it.
One of my favorites. I used to hear this from my mother all the time. Where there is a will, there is a way. And that's unknown who actually wrote or said that for the first time. But that actually speaks to the choices that we make in life.
um, I wonder how often people say that but don't really think what it means.
I'm sure. I'm sure, because it's a well-known quote. And I think about how often my mother said that in terms of getting me to think about how I wanted to accomplish something, or getting me to embrace some of the notions I had as I was growing up, because I had no idea that I was going to be a therapist. I had no idea I was going to end up going back to school as an adult to get my advanced degree. I had no idea of any of that, but I could hear her voice actually saying to me, where there is a will, there's a way.
Hmm. So when there's a will, there is a way. If you're willing to do what it takes, and that sometimes that includes unsuccess, you will get to where you want to be if you're willing to do it.
Right,
Wow.
right. Willingness is powerful. Here's another one. It's your willingness and commitment which can set everything right for you more than anything else.
Hmm.
Willingness more than hard work, willingness more than long hours, willingness more than um, having a bunch of money in the bank. Willingness. It's your willingness and commitment which can set everything right for you more than anything else. That speaks to the productivity aspect too.
Yes, it does. There's a quote that's similar to that one, Susan, and it talks about being enthusiastic.
Mm,
And when I hear willingness and commitment, I think of that, even though that's not the definition of enthusiasm, it gets us in that frame where if you have that enthusiasm, the belief that, and enthusiasm that something can happen, you'll figure out how to make it happen.
hmm That actually reminds me of another quote that I was looking at. I can't find it right now. Um, oh, changing a habit is never difficult. Difficult is to address your unwillingness to do it. I love that quote.
Oh man, too bad we couldn't have a page just full of quotes in your chapter, huh?
Yes, that would be fun. But changing
Oh,
it never difficult. Difficult is to address your unwillingness to do it. I work with a lot of people who have addictions to different things, and I think about how challenging it can be for people to break the habit of addiction. And this opens up a whole new door talking about addictions, because is it a disease or is it not a disease? That's a whole other topic. But changing a habit is never difficult. Difficult is to address your unwillingness to do it. Willingness in terms of recovery is huge.
yes, yes. Anytime we're trying to make a shift, if we're not willing, it will not happen.
Right. And willingness is almost synonymous with intentionality and inspiration and desire at this point in terms of addiction,
Wow,
motivational piece.
that makes sense. And we all know how we're addicted to social media and our email and all sorts of other things that keep distracting us from doing our real work.
Oh,
So
that's
that's pretty cool. Susan, I'd love for us to continue, and I bet you have like 10 more quotes ready to go, but we've run out of time, friend.
it goes fast, doesn't it?
It does. It always does. But I would like to ask you if you could be so kind as to start um, putting these quotes into the Brilliant Biz Books Facebook page. So if everyone would go to Facebook page and put in Brilliant Biz Book, you would see where we're hanging out. And Susan, if you could just, even if you would drop one of these in a week and maybe put a paragraph for us to ponder a little bit or how it might apply to us, that would be really a great way to serve the small business sector. Are you game for that?
Well, I'm willing.
Oh, yay!
Yes, I'm willing to drop one of these quotes in there every so often.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And we have one more uh, podcast episode with you. So, everyone, so far, if you like what you're hearing, and boy, Susan and I got our geek on for the last couple episodes of dissecting part of a book called The Act of Will, which was pretty phenomenal. Um, these are the episodes that Susan has addressed regarding the are you willing to be successful? It's episode 64, 69, 75, 84. Those are the episodes that she's been in so far, plus today's. And I think when you need a little boost, go back and check this out because we unpacked a lot of stuff that will help you be in the right mindset to take on whatever it is that's in front of you. Don't you think so, Susan?
Yes, we did. We went pretty deep with the whole concept of willingness, thanks to Roberto Assagioli in that book, The Act of Will.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so we have one more round to wrap this all up. But for right now, I want to share, listeners, this is how you can learn more and engage with #1 best-selling business author, Susan White. Start by reading Chapter 8 in the book, Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner. That's Volume 2 with the emerald green cover. And then gift your business's performance by accepting the invitation that Susan has at the end of her author's page, which is at the end of that chapter. She has all sorts of social media handles there for you to connect with her as well. And I'm going to be really specific. We're talking Susan White. We also have another Susan in the book series, so we want to make sure you know which Susan we're speaking of right now. And Here's something that's really cool. You can go to your app store and download the free app, Brilliant Biz Book, all one word, Brilliant Biz Book, and you will find access to how to get a hold of all of the authors, learn more about the book, what the authors are up to, and all of the podcast episodes are housed there as well. So I shared with you, you can find Susan on 64, 69, 75, and 84. And here's another really cool thing about that app. We have a section called Click on Ask an Expert. And you'll see Susan's white name. If you have a question for her, you can go ahead and click on her name, type her message. It will go directly to her, and she'll respond back to you. I think that's a pretty cool message concept, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the app is awesome.
Yeah, it really is. People need to get up on that and start playing with it. There's so much wisdom there and other things that we have available to help small business owners. So thank you today for thank you for today and sharing your wisdom with us, Susan. We know your time is precious and you have so much to offer people. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. It was great to talk with you and to share some of the quotes about willingness, one of my favorite topics.
It is, and I know that it is for you. Listeners, we appreciate you listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast, where you learn about how to create more brilliant breakthroughs for your small business. Shine brightly until next week.